In today's Gimp tutorial, I'm going to show you some advanced features of the Paths tool. You should already have some basic knowledge of how to use the Paths tool in placing anchors. Let's start by selecting our Paths tool, and we have a blank canvas here, and I'm just going to create a triangle on here. Now in the tool options, you may already be aware of stroke path and how this works for the Paths tool. I'm just going to go over it briefly. There's a lot of options in here that you might like to choose from. We're going to go with the default that I have here, which is 6 pixel line width, solid color, and stroke. And you can see that it created a solid line drawing of my triangle path. I suggest playing with that option more to find out all the ins and outs of it. For now, I'm going to undo this and take you over to the Paths dialog. If you do not see the Paths dialog, you can make it appear by going to Windows, Dockable Dialogs, and Paths. You can see a small version of my triangle path that I have made. You can control paths similarly to the way that you control layers in an image. Down here is New Path, Duplicate Path, and Path to Selection options. If I choose another tool, my path appears to disappear from the canvas. But looking over at our Paths dialog, we can see that it's still there in memory. If we select the Paths tool and begin drawing another path, you'll see in the Paths dialog we now have 2 paths. I can show the triangle again by clicking on this square and it will show an eye. And if I click the eye for the circle, what will happen is whenever I select a new tool, the paths will still be visible. By going back to the Paths tool and selecting it and coming over to the triangle, I can continue editing the triangle again, so you can see that its anchors are saved in memory. Now I want to show you how to put text along a path, so I'm going to hide my triangle and only show my elliptical looking path here. To put text along a path, first let's create some sample text. Close this. Okay, make sure our path is selected, and in the text tool options you'll see text along path. Click that, and now you can see there's a new path and that it runs along the elliptical path. I can hide the elliptical path, select the path. To fill this text, I'm going to go to my Paths tool, select the path. It'll show all the anchors that are used to create this path. Choose Selection from Path. Alright, in the Layers dialog, I have the text selected, so I have to switch it to the background. And I'm going to zoom in on this twice and select the bucket tool and make sure it has fill hole selection, color with color black, and click in here and go to select none, go to Paths dialog, hide the text path, and shrink the image down. And that's briefly how you'd put text along a path. Alright, now I'm going to undo this and show you how to create a path from a selection. I'm going to hide all my paths that I currently have and create a selection. We'll just do a simple circle. Now the thing about paths is that they are only 2-dimensional, whereas selections can be 3-dimensional and have a feathered effect. If you create a path from a feathered selection, it will lose its feathered qualities. go to select to path, and now we see that there's a new selection in the selections dialog. Let's show this with the eye and go to select none, and we can see our new path. Click on the paths tool and click on our path. You can see where the anchors are on this path. You can also see that a conversion from a selection to a path isn't quite perfect, as there should be less anchors than this on this path, but it has a very approximate shape which can be useful to you. Now you can also deform paths with the deformation tools. We're going to try stretching this path here with the perspective tool. Make sure you come down to the tools options and choose path. We have layer, selection, and path that we can edit on. We want to transform the path. So let's just grab it and drag it some. Let's pull this window out of the way here a bit and bending this corner down, and this is what it looks before, and this is how it will look after. Click transform, and we have our transformed path there. We can also transform multiple paths at the same time simply by locking them together here in the paths dialog. Let's show this other path. We still have our perspective tool selected, so let's go ahead and drag it on the canvas here. Pull this down here so we can see better. Now it's only showing what the change will be in one of the paths, but it will affect all of them that are linked together. Click transform, and now both paths have been warped in the same way. This can be done similarly with all these tools here: rotate tool, scale tool, shear tool, perspective tool, flip tool. The last thing that I'm going to touch on here is that you can bring in SVG files to be used as paths also. To do so, just go to your paths dialog, right click, and choose import path. You can see that you can also export paths here. So that's all for the paths tool. Thanks for watching.